question is, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Dennis is here and Zach's here, so you do.
Okay.
Rachel had said she was coming. She emailed me earlier. The only person I haven't heard from, I guess, then is Tom.
Yeah. Rachel's always just a few minutes late. I think she just gets in from work late.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to start now. This is the Village of New Paltz Planning Board regular meeting of Tuesday, February 16, 2021. We are live streamed and recorded remotely at 7 p.m. We have a very brief business agenda. We have some administrative business where we'll look at the minutes and we'll get some updates from the village board, UCPB and EPB. We have a pre-application discussion of New Paltz Apartments project, which we're going to move to the end. We have a public comment section. We have an application review. We do have a pre-application site plan, special use permit, PB21. It does not have a number yet because I have not completed the paperwork, at 107 Main Street, which was or is Murphy's. The applicant are Edward and Gina Carroll. The zoning district is B2. And so we're going to go ahead and then we're going to get started. So the first thing that I would like everybody to do is let's take a look at the minutes, which they have shared, which Alana has shared on the public drive. And last week was fairly brief as well. Or last meeting was fairly brief as well. We essentially had a discussion of another pre-application. And the meeting started at 7 and we actually adjourned it at 7:28, which is probably a record. Does everybody see the meeting, the minutes? Anything that we need to do? Any edits to the meeting? Is everybody okay with it?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. So we have approved the minutes of the meeting. So the next thing we're going to do is get some updates from the village board. And I see that we have Don Kirk here with the Environmental Planning Board. So Will, why don't we go ahead and start with you? Are there any updates from the village board?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, just one major update, the annexation of the Mike Morello project, which you're reviewing. We've agreed that we will annex that particular property and pending, of course, your approval. So that's my update. And also 5 Broadhead, working steadily on that. Maybe Rick Golden can provide an update on where that is in terms of it going before the ZBA.
Thank you very much, Will. So Don, what's happening with the Environmental Planning Board?
Hey there. Not much. There was some passing discussion of Roddy's upcoming project and the desire to continue figuring out how to be most effective. We want to try to have secret conversations prior to the planning board having them so we can have some meaningful input, but nothing major to report.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So Alana, do we have any public comments that are pending before us?
I don't have anything in front of me on the YouTube chat right now, and I also haven't received anything via email before the meeting.
Very well. We're going to keep that open and we'll check in later. And if I forget, Alana, please remind me as we get towards the end of the meeting if there are any public comments that we need to attend to.
Sure.
So, hello, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, sorry, I'm a little tired. How are you?
Okay. That's okay. We're glad you're here. So right now, we're going to be moving to the application review. It's a pre-application. It's been given the planning board designation of 21, but nothing following it because it is a pre-application. It is for 107 Main Street. That is Murphy's. And we do have two people here who are ready to speak about it, as well as Alan there. So why don't we get started on that and give us a little bit of information about the project that you have going on.
You want me to jump in?
Please do.
Okay. Well, good evening, Chair Linden and members of the board. My name is Alan Ross, and I'm the architect working with Gina and Ed Carroll on the prospective project at 107 Main Street, currently, as you know, Murphy's Pub. Brief introduction. Gina and Ed are SUNY New Paltz alumni and homeowners in the village. They are very involved with the university and have set up an annual scholarship there and are on the university's foundation board. Their interest in and commitment to New Paltz is a good part of their motivation in being involved in the project and sort of creating this whole thing. The plan is to substantially improve the establishment while targeting a different customer demographic, generally people beyond college age. To make the building accessible, it is not now accessible, and to add an outdoor dining area at the rear of the property. As I noted in my cover letter, we would like to particularly discuss the special use permits for the property. A new one for the outdoor cafe restaurant, and the continuation of the two existing ones for the mixed use building and bar tavern, as these three special uses are essential for the viability of the project. There is a possibility that the two latter uses would be suspended for more than 180 days because of construction or COVID-related delays. And per 212-55 of the village code, that would mean that approval for them would have to be granted again by the planning board. So that's something we would like to have a discussion about. Ed and Gina, do you have something you'd like to share? Or
Sure. First of all, Alan was the architect designing our house on 45 Elting. He lives across the street from us, so he had to do a nice design, because he's going to be staring at it pretty much the whole time. So there's that to disclose. But basically, we're excited about spending more time in New Paltz. We've stayed very connected to the town, and the thought was we would upgrade sort of the Murphy's, make it a piano bar, upgrade the kitchen a little bit, make the menu hopefully improved, and cater to a different clientele than the current clientele, likely people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and people who still consider Billy Joel and Elton John hip, I guess is what would you add?
Oh my gosh. I think that, Ed and I met in college a million years ago. We graduated in the 80s. And it's just, we're coming full circle, and it's really a fun, interesting business for us to step into if we're able to make it into what we hope to, which is sort of as Ed explained, a piano bar. We're very excited. It's looking forward to retirement. It's scary to say it, but we hope to have this in our future.
So mainly we wanted to show up, introduce ourselves, and hear if there's anything we should be thinking about that we wouldn't normally think about from the village point of view.
Thank you. What we want to do is just kind of look at it. We do have from the architects, and everyone has in their shared drive, a copy of the plans that they have. Gives you a bit of an idea of what's going on, and for better or for worse, I'm sure we are all familiar with Murphy's. So, has everyone had a chance to kind of look at that? If not, please take some time to look at it. There are some changes that will occur, including a rear deck off into the area that is the big open area behind Murphy's and all the buildings that are in that area. Looks like the parking is going to stay the same. I understand that you're not looking to change the upstairs area. So you're still going to have tenants that are going to be living there as a residential area. And there we go. We did get a note from the building inspector. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think some of the points that he made, and if I can find it here quickly, we'll talk about it, but then again, I might not find it quickly. Among the things that he discussed were, let's see if we can get over here quickly. There we go. So it was a memo from Corey, which he said, I reviewed the submission of documents regarding a pre-application hearing for a proposed site plan update and special use permit. He said, I offer the following comments. Currently, this property is improved with a mixed-use building containing a dwelling unit consisting of 3 bedrooms and 1 commercial bar tavern use. The proposal to add a deck for outdoor seatings would be accessory to the pre-existing non-conforming bar use. A special use permit will not be needed for the bar, and then there's some blacking out, and I'm going to have to get with Corey on that. Rick, I don't know if you know what that's about. It says renovations to the interior may require a review of off-street parking requirements. Updated site plan is necessary for the addition of the deck. Initial comments and suggestions not to be considered as requirements, rather talking points for the planning board. And he said, if there are any questions, please let us know. To our applicants, did you receive that? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, good. So any comments from the members of the board regarding the project?
No,
Well,
I'm
I
pretty
think-
familiar. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm pretty familiar with the space. I mean, I just moved up here a few years ago, so I've only been like walking past, but I did walk behind today, so I was, got a sense of the space. But I just wanted to clarify that you do intend to keep the apartments that are currently rented upstairs.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Other than that, I'm good.
Zach?
Yeah, so it seems like from the site plan, there are no changes to the footprint of the building.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And will there be any other exterior changes?
Paint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the outside of the building, there's a lot of rotted
Needs a
wood
lot of
and air conditioning
renovations,
units
yeah.
that don't look too sturdy in the windows. There's going to be some maintenance involved, but I think it's cosmetic, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
There's
Do you intend to keep that, like the part of seating, the limited seating that's on Main Street? Do you intend to keep that there?
Yeah, I mean, especially in this day and age, I think it's really
Yeah.
great to have an outdoor seating area. And I think
Of course,
actually people, even when things ease up a bit, people will still be more comfortable outside.
Absolutely.
I think there's one of the general intents is to make the building look better, because it looks kind of bedraggled now, and the plywood at that seating area you were referring to is just incredibly ad hoc, kind of odd, kind of primitive. It looks like a barrier more than a aesthetic, place. So.
Rachel, anything that you want to add in on?
For some reason, I didn't see the site plan. I saw the memo. Yeah, I've always been kind of interested in that space behind there. I guess as it sort of goes further up the street as well. I know on the side there, I used to plant sunflowers when I was planting sunflowers all over the village.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they would get really tall and they would actually bump into those air conditioning units that you have that
Oh,
come out.
wow. Well, you should come back and plant some more. We'll get rid
Oh,
of
believe me. Don't need to ask me twice. Just don't pull them up.
Yeah, we envision it as being a very pretty garden type area. back there.
Also, I don't remember that as being so much a student bar. I thought it was more of a cop and firefighter bar. I'm just
Well,
Not like
changed.
Saturday.
What we've come
It
to
just depends on
understand,
the time.
maybe Raquel, maybe someone else knows. We've come to understand, and our niece graduated from New Paltz not that long ago, and she said it's a late night hangout for cheap beers, and they get crowded at night.
I did not, full disclosure, I went to college in California, so I moved up
Oh.
here in my early 30s, so I don't know, but I would say that I as a frequenter of the Trailways bus, I have seen many situations there.
well, you're almost ready for a piano bar.
Right.
I know, it's so funny when you said that. I was thinking last time I was in Vegas and I was like skipping 20s or something. Anyway, but I know, I think it's interesting. I just had another question about the so the reconfiguration, the bathrooms. I know they're specifically stated. I was looking at the site plan. You're shifting the plumbing? I assume is fine to kind of go laterally, because it looks a little bit different in the site plan.
Well, I think one of the ways to address it, there's a community needs here. I think one is, kind of what's the use and what's the best nightlife scene in New Paltz, or what are we trying to, there's that. There's also accessibility, and it's just a good thing to have a public space be fully accessible. So part of that work is to take the bathrooms and put them down on the main level of the bar, of the restaurant. So basically to make it more of a single level space, which would meet accessibility guidelines, code requirements, regulations. And part of that is that the bathrooms not be accessed via stairway.
In the basement, there was a sewage problem at one point, and I'm sure you'll address that, but that's something that we probably ought to look at to make sure that is a cured item.
We're working with David Roars about that now, about how to address that. They'll definitely be fully addressed.
Very good. Okay, well, I think we've kind of given it our once over. So the next step is for you to get in. The next step is for you to, yes, I'm sorry, Rick, go ahead.
We did look at it briefly, even though this is only on for a pre-app.
Sure.
So if it would help, I could identify a few of the things that we saw quickly.
If you would, please.
Yeah, great.
The first one is that the application needs to be submitted in the name of the owner, which according to county records anyway, I don't know if it's changed recently, is Verb Beer Corp. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, our understanding was that the owner could provide a authorization.
It can provide an authorization for others to appear. But the corporation needs to be actually filing it or give specific permission for usually a contract vendee or something. It's normally not done or shouldn't be done in the name of an engineer or something. It's
right.
So a representative.
Give authorization for a prospective buyer.
That's what happens normally. But here, I think it's actually the owners that are going through this application, right?
Right. So they can give authorization to the Carrolls. The current owner could give authorization to the Carrolls.
Well, it's just if the current owner is Verb Beer Corporation, for instance, then the application should be in the name of that owner. And it's the owner simply presenting it. Who presents it on there is a different matter. Where you need to have permission is that if some other entity other than the owner is actually presenting, for instance, a contract vendee or something like that, or a developer.
So there's no way for the application to be in the name of a prospective buyer.
Oh yeah, it can be. And at that point in time, the corporation has to go ahead and give authorization to that prospective buyer. And that's whose application, the application can then be made in that prospective buyer's. But as I understand it, I think that it was indicated that you were the applicant for this.
No, I hear you. I understand your point. You're correct.
Okay. Um, There's a few bulk table issues that should be addressed. One is the minimum lot size for all commercial uses is noted as 2,500 square feet. That's been interpreted as each commercial use has to have 2,500 square feet. But you should check with Corey to determine if some of the combination of uses here is not separate uses, but simply a combination, so that 2,500 may not have to be applied as to each one. Second bulk table issue is with respect to a minimum rear yard requirement, and I think you should consult Corey if you meet the minimum
Right.
rear yards.
Sure.
The plans are supposed to show the location and size and materials of any signage.
Mhm.
The plan should also identify the height of the proposed fence, which
Mhm.
non-residential areas can't exceed 8 feet.
Real quick question, maybe this is a question for Corey, but there on the rear deck will currently be a few feet above grade. Would that 8 feet be from like grade plane, grade, or would it
It's going to
be?
be up to Corey how he interprets it. And finally, the dumpster needs to be screened from all public ways, and it doesn't appear that it's being screened from Main Street.
Right.
That's the preliminary comments we had anyway.
Can I jump in on the concern regarding the special use continuation?
Permit, yes, please.
So it's an interesting issue, which is that, we're embarking on a substantial renovation project, which, is substantial because we're fundamentally improving the space for good reasons, accessibility being one of them. So in this substantial construction process, things could happen, for instance, the sewage line, or we could run into some ledge or framing conditions or HVAC, sprinkler, whatever. And that could adversely impact the schedule to push construction past further, so in an unexpected way, so that we would be beyond the 180 days of abandoning the use for more than 180 days. And my understanding of the code, and Corey had pointed this out originally, is that that would mean that we would then have to come back and reapply to the planning board for the bar tavern use and for the mixed building use, both special permit uses. And since both of those uses, particularly tavern use, is really fundamental to the viability of the project, we're trying to get some sense from the board as to how would there be some, given the situation with COVID and I don't know, any extenuating circumstances, there are others that there might be. Is there some way that you can sort of address our concerns that, by something beyond our control, something's going to happen, and then we'll be caught up in this technicality, and then that will fundamentally hurt the project for years on, going forward?
It's something the planning board doesn't have the power to address. Corey does, and the planning board would be guided by Corey's guidance with respect to those types of issues. I wouldn't characterize it as technicality, because those things are pretty substantive.
Sure.
As to the need to have timely use of special use permits, et cetera.
Sure.
But Corey is the one to address those issues too.
So when you say he's the one to address the issues, you mean that he has the authority to determine whether something.
He has the authority, and unless his authority is appealed, he has the authority to interpret the code, all aspects of the zoning code.
Right.
The planning board doesn't have that. The planning board has to live with whatever the code says, or the code as interpreted by Corey.
Got it.
So if Corey says, yes, you can do this, and issues a memorandum to that effect, then the planning board will follow that.
Got it.
He's going to be pretty much your go-to person on this until it comes before us. And he will be able to guide you and direct you into exactly what you need to do when how and to what extent. Corey's the guy.
Right. Well, that's great.
Rick, anything else before we kind of summarize this?
No.
Okay. Well, what you'll need next to do is you'll need to get in touch with Alana, file the proper forms, consult with Corey, and move forward. And as the process moves, we'll then have you back here once it is officially declared, given a number, and you have all of the details kind of tied up at the moment. So next step is to talk with Alana, then go to Corey, and you'll be on your way.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for your time. Nice meeting you.
I know.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming here. Good luck with your project, and we look forward to seeing you back here.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, folks, the next thing that we want to do is we want to look at a project that is going to come before us at some point. This project is tentatively called the New Paltz Apartments. It is a fairly large, and we're going to let Rick take the lead here on this. It is a fairly large project that is going to occur, which will include apartments. It will include recreation center, a rail trail. Well, not really a rail trail, but a trail access, and it's going to be behind the university. If you were to take 32 from the university, going out towards the New Paltz bypass, turning right there, and then over to Hawks Hill Road, in that area, and there's already one apartment complex called Bella Terra that is there. There is an expanse of land with a couple of ponds, and that is where a gentleman, Mike Moriello, is looking to develop the land that he owns there into an apartment complex. And Rick's going to give us more of the details, but generally speaking,
Is there
quite large.
anything in the folders? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to follow along. I don't
Sorry?
see anything. I said, is there anything in the folders? I know that I saw
No.
in the email. Okay,
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, no, I put the full EAF and the site plan under administrative business in the meeting folder.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, because he hasn't officially come before us or officially created,
Okay.
this, we can't really, I guess we can give him a folder, but I thank you, Alana, for putting it there. It's going to involve an annexation, which Bill Murray discussed. It's going to require a zone change. Then there will be a subdivision that is created and a site plan. So there's going to be a lot of activity that's going to be involved. The town, the village is going to be the interested party in the seeker, and will probably, the village board will be the lead agency on the project. And there's just quite a bit to it, and it's going to be fairly complex, and it's going to require a great deal of attention here. It's one of two potentially very large projects coming to us in the next year. So what I would like to do is I'm going to allow Rick to give some information on it. What I would like for all of you to do is to take some brief notes. Alana's going to take more thorough notes, and then we're going to wait until a lot of this is already done before we take a deep dive into it. But I thought that it would probably be a good idea to give everyone an idea of what is coming towards us, so that we can be prepared as it approaches us and not be left flat-footed. So with that in mind, Rick, do you want to go ahead and take the stage here, and you can give us your summary of the activity on that?
Sure. And during the process of this, I'll try to explain generally the annexation process so that you understand what's going on and how eventually the planning board fits in to the piece here. Any property owner in one municipality whose land adjoins another municipality may ask those municipalities to have one of them, where it's not presently located, and that property. Are you hearing feedback, or was it just me, for instance?
Fine, go ahead.
Could I ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
I just have a quick question. Did the village pass, the town passed a wetlands law in 2011, correct? And what about the village? Did the village pass a wetlands law?
I'd have to look in the code. There are wetlands regulations in the village. I don't know if it's the same as it is in the town. I'd have to look at that to be sure.
Let's let him get through some of the more general explanations, and then we can start to look at very specific questions so that we get a broad picture tonight. It's kind of what we want to do, because there are going to be so many questions as this comes through. I think it probably would be profitable for us to get a kind of a broad stroke, broad picture of this tonight.
Okay. Just one more thing. I feel very, very strongly about getting a really good idea of the pre-existing conditions before we take the next step.
I think that's a good point, and I think that's something that we can address as this comes towards us. But right now, we're in such initial stages that it's that it would be difficult for us to ask for any information and commentary and any studies right now, because a lot of this, although his architects and his engineers have put together a plan, it's still in its infancy. So we need to kind of, we actually need to wait for a little bit, because we don't have any authority as of today to do anything, because it has not been presented to us. So what we're trying to do is to give everybody a little bit of a background so that we're well aware of what's going to occur.
Yeah, and the reason that is because you only have authority to address a subdivision or a bare subdivision, or a subdivision like this is with site plan elements within it, when it's property in the village. Right now, it's not property in the village, so you have no jurisdiction whatsoever over this property. So right now, the petitioners have filed with both the town and the village an annexation petition, which proposes to annex approximately 60 acres of land from the town in connection with a very specific project, and that is a 250-unit student housing complex, and also asking for the village, for which this will be annexed into, to rezone the property to be R3 multifamily. So that's the basic petition. Now, the decision of whether or not to allow the annexation is solely that between the village board of trustees and the town board. There's no other party involved in this. It's just those two. And so if the way annexation works is that if both boards are in favor of the petition, the annexation will occur. And if neither board is in favor of the petition, the annexation won't occur. And the property owner doesn't have any way to sort of even get a court to order that it be done. But if one board is in favor and one board is not, then the board that's in favor can go ahead and ask a court to order the annexation. I don't think that's going to happen here, but that's the only third alternative. There's only three paths here. Either both agree to it, neither agree to it, or only one agrees to it. And if the boards are split and that municipality takes it to a court, it's a very unique situation. And I use that word very specifically. There is no other litigation like this that is allowed. This annexation litigation starts in the appellate courts, completely skips the lower courts, and the appellate courts appoint a master, or like a referee, that will make determinations on whether or not the proper standard exists. Now, all decisions concerning the annexation, both by the village board of trustees, the town board, and ultimately if a court gets involved, but I doubt that's going to happen. So let's just talk about the two boards that are involved here, the Board of Trustees and the Town Board. The standard that they must address in order to either approve or disapprove the annexation is whether or not the annexation is in the best interests of all. And when they say all, it's all of the taxing jurisdictions. So it's very different than a normal situation that a board is involved in, where typically the Board of Trustees tries to decide what's in the best interest of the village. The town would typically decide what's in the best interest of the town. But here, that's not the standard. The standard that they all must apply is what's in the best interest of all the taxing jurisdictions. That is the village and the town and the school district and fire districts or any other taxing jurisdictions that are involved. That's the standard that has to be used. Now, during this annexation, the village, very typically, and will happen here, Will Frank, the village attorney, will be representing the village. Something a little bit unusual is that I have been asked by the town board to represent the town board in its decision-making with respect to the annexation. I'm also the planning board attorney for the town, which is one of the reasons I think they reached out to me. But quite frankly, the base reason why they reached out to me is that the town attorney, Joe Moriello, is the uncle of the applicant, Mike Moriello. So he's conflicted out, and so they needed a new attorney. They looked around and I was hanging around. So they went ahead and they appointed me to do it. Because I will ultimately have some role in advising the planning board with respect to this. Although there's no true conflict, both boards have agreed to waive any potential conflict that there might exist with me representing the town. And so I will be representing the town board in the annexation process.
So thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. It's kind of the blessing and the curse of a small town that occurs. But thank you for making that obvious. Raquel, you have a note?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Does that mean that there would be separate public hearings, or would they be combined as one?
Yeah, I'm going to go through all that process.
Okay,
It's an excellent question. So before I get to the specifics of the public hearing process, because that's part of the decision making, there's another very important aspect that affects you as planning board members. Is annexation is subject to seeker, and seeker must be completed before the decision by the village board of trustees and the town board decides that they want to vote to approve the petition or deny the petition. So seeker has to be completed at that time. The only involved agencies on this annexation are the village board of trustees and the town board, because those are the only ones who have approval power over the annexation. Now, the issue, of course, always arises as to, well, should they just be doing seeker in connection with purely the annexation petition, which happens when it's vacant land, right? So if there were 60 acres with no project in mind, and they wanted 60 acres annexed into the village on the hopes of developing it someday, but there wasn't any specific plan, then that's all the seeker would be done by the town board and village board of trustees. However, here, the petition includes a very, very specific project laid out with all the site plan elements and everything else. So although there's some technical ways to work around it, it essentially would be segmentation to go ahead and split up the seeker review. As a result, seeker will be done, the complete seeker will be done before it ever gets to the planning board. Right, so all the impacts of the specific project, and this goes to something that Rachel was bringing up earlier. All of the seeker reviews are going to be done. In this case, the town and the village have decided that the village board of trustees will be the seeker lead agency. So they will oversee the entire seeker process, not only for the annexation, but for the specific project involved. Something that the planning board, if it was in the village and it came for a subdivision review, you would be doing all the seeker. But here, you're not going to be doing the seeker. Seeker will be complete by the time you get it. You still are going to be dealing with subdivision aspects, site plan aspects like we talked about last time, where there's lots of issues that you can do as a site plan that may have some overlap with seeker, but it wouldn't be through the seeker process that you would be addressing those.
Can we hold for just a moment here? This is entirely unique, and it is quite normal for us to be the lead agency in seeker and to have control over that. But with this specific project and under these very, very specific sets of circumstances, we will not be involved with seeker. And I think that is critical for us to know and to understand. Any feedback? Now is the time for feedback on this. Now is the time for comments on this, because it is essentially something that has already been decided. So if there are any airing of grievances or discussion, now probably is the best time to do it, because this is really the only time.
Well, what will happen, there will be an avenue for the public, and I'll get to that in a second.
Wouldn't our opinion at this point be the same as public comment?
Yes, it would be. And more importantly it's an excellent point. More importantly than that, and this will be the time that if you believe that you want to have certain things studied, there will be an opportunity in the seeker process for people to weigh in, and you certainly can weigh in.
Now, will we be able to weigh in as a board or as individuals?
You could weigh in as a board if you wanted to get everybody together and have a majority decide what to do. But the planning board doesn't have any real jurisdiction here, so I'm not sure of the benefit of the board doing it as a whole, but you aren't precluded from doing that. But what I want to emphasize is that even though you are speaking either by the planning board or individually, you don't have the same kind of rights as everybody else to go ahead and weigh in on what you think of the project.
And
right?
why is that?
Because you will eventually be acting on this application, and you are required to be fair and impartial all the way through all of the evidence on the applications that will come before you to remain fair and impartial. So you cannot come out for this project or against this project. If so, you'll have to be recused from decision-making when the subdivision and the site plan aspects come before you.
That's very key. Would you please repeat that? Because I think that's very key for us to understand.
Well, it is. It's a very important aspect, and it's one that's difficult to practice, but you need to practice it, is that although in your private capacity, you would have the opportunity to weigh in during public hearings and seeker issues as to what you thought of the project, you don't have that luxury. You gave up that luxury when you wanted to be planning board members. And so as planning board members, you basically have to be impartial, as with any application, until you get all the evidence, and then you can go ahead and make whatever decision you believe is appropriate at that time. But so there's nothing stopping you from weighing in and asking the Board of Trustees to study certain things in the seeker process, and to ask for certain information from the applicant, but it needs to be neutral in its presentation.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it's definitely considered to be a type 1, correct?
Yes, it'll be type 1 on multiple levels. It's a type 1 action.
Okay, thank you. Well, and then also, if we're weighing in on environmental impacts, that I don't feel like that necessarily has to be construed as being in favor or against the project per se.
Well, it depends on how you present it, and that's why you have to be very careful.
So if I had something to say, could I run it by you and say, is this impartial enough, or?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent idea, Rachel, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that should we have individual concerns, that it would be smart of us to present them to Rick so that it would not interfere with our decision as a board? And Rachel, I think that's a really good question and comment there.
Yeah, because one of the big things that I do, in addition to giving you legal advice as to what you can and can't do, one of the other big things that any lawyer does in this field is to try to ensure that your decision-making process is going to be as bulletproof as possible at the end, so that at your final decision, whatever it is, because it doesn't really matter in that sense for me what your decision is, but I want to make sure that whatever your decision is, it's going to be something that can be upheld. And so that's why many times I will sort of steer you one way or the other, because I want to make sure that you're in as strong a position as possible, so that when you finally do make that decision can stand. And so one of those issues is if somebody would say something that somebody else could use later on, that if you didn't recuse yourself, for instance, a challenger to whatever your decision was, to approve or not approve, would go ahead and say, well, this planning board person showed a bias or a lack of objectivity when they weighed in this fashion during the annexation process. And that's what we want to avoid.
Because if we don't avoid it, even our best intentions, and even though the intelligence of the comment, all of that would be lost. So we just need to be careful if we do have any comments about it, and that, because I myself have some questions about it, and I know other people will as well. So we just need to be careful so that we don't compromise our position as a board.
Now, getting back to the earlier question by Raquel about public hearings and stuff, I'll go back to the process of all of this. That there must be the first action that's really happened, other than the village board is going to take lead agency. The next big action that will happen outside of the seeker review is that there must be a joint public hearing, physically joint, or virtually in this case, joint public hearing of the village board of trustees and the town board, right? They have to meet together to go ahead and conduct this joint public hearing. And that allows the public and anybody else to weigh in at that time with respect to the annexation. It's unclear now whether or not that will be combined with other public hearings. For instance, if the village board of trustees determines that this action under seeker requires an environmental impact statement, doesn't have to. It can decide to do it through an expanded Part 3 EAF. But if they have a DEIS process and they have a public hearing, it may be that that public hearing and the joint public hearing gets combined, as the seeker regulations say that public hearings should be combined with seeker public hearings. So we don't know yet when that public hearing is going to occur, but there is no doubt that there will be a joint public hearing because it's mandatory under the annexation process. Now, after the joint public hearing is closed, and it's not one that's allowed to stay open for a very long time, once it's closed, the two boards don't make their determinations at that time. They have 90 days after that to separately vote in their respective town board, village board of trustees, as to whether or not they're going to vote yes or no on the petition. And that the 90 days could be a problem because with seeker is going to take more, it may take more than 90 days, obviously. And they can't vote until the seeker is completed. So I asked for, and the applicant readily provided, a waiver of that 90-day period between the close of the joint public hearing and when the two boards have to vote. Because and the reason of the importance of that is if the two boards don't vote within that 90-day period after the close of the joint public hearing, the annexation is approved by default. Right. So it's one of the few things that happened by default in municipal law. And this is one of them. And so I wanted to be very careful for the town board in representing them that they didn't have a decision made for them by non-action. So I asked for a waiver of that 90-day timeframe for the default approval. And we have received it already from the applicant waiving that 90-day timeframe. So that in a nutshell is the process and how seeker is folded into it. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that people have.
The floor is open. Now's the time.
Is there any sense of what the timeline is looking like for when that initial public hearing will be?
No, not to my knowledge.
I mean, it's not even a formal application yet, right?
Yeah, it has been.
Oh, is it? Okay, I'm sorry.
There hasn't been what John was talking to before is that there wasn't an application yet for subdivision approval and site plan. But there has been filed, and it was initially filed back in November, but it was refiled again January 19th, I think it was, petitions in both places, both the town and the village, for this annexation to occur, and includes the specific project involved. So there is definitely a petition. The next action is likely going to be done. That one action that's already been taken is that the town board has said that it will defer to the village board of trustees to be seeker lead agency. So the village board hasn't yet acted on that, but I think they may in their next meeting or two actually go ahead and say that they want to be seeker lead agency. Since there are no other involved agencies, that will end it, and there's no need for circulation of a notice of intent. So the board could actually assume lead agency, the village board of trustees could assume lead agency, but that's going to be up to Will Frank to advise them. Once that's done, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any firm timeline as to how they're going to approach it, where they're going to have an initial joint public hearing early on, and then, since we have a waiver of the 90 days, then conduct seeker, or whether or not they want to have seeker conducted before they have the joint public hearing so that the two boards and the public know more about the project through the seeker review. That's going to be something that the village board of trustees as lead agency has the ability to determine.
If no board members have a question, may I ask one?
Rachel, I think believe has a question
All right.
first, please.
Just very quickly, yeah. So when you say the seeker process, that involves them, filing a DEIS. Would we then have the opportunity to?
Not necessarily, all right? The seeker process has several paths. One of the paths for a type 1 action is certainly the traditional path that there's a scope that is put together for a DEIS, then the DEIS, then an FEIS, and then a finding statement, right? But that's not the only path, right? So I'm sure one of the paths is that they will not take is simply when they look at this to say, we're going to declare a negative declaration, because there's a lot of issues that have to be addressed. So, but an alternate path, a path that your planning board has taken in the path as well, and one that's recognized by the courts, although not set forth specifically in the seeker regulations, is what's called an expanded EAF Part 3, in which the village board can say, all right, we're not going to go down the DEIS or the EIS route. We're not going to go down that route right away, possibly. And they would say, go ahead to the petitioner. We believe through going through the EAF that the following are the issues that we believe may have a significant impact on the environment. So if we'll give you an opportunity to provide various studies and reports, et cetera, that can convince us that with these reports and studies and possible changes in the plan, that you will have mitigated to the greatest extent practicable all of those potential environmental issues. And if they do that, they can then grant a negative declaration at the end of that process. It's not necessarily a shorter process than the DEIS process. And it certainly is no less protective of the environment than the DEIS process, because the same standard applies, and that is that the lead agency has to take a hard look at all those potential significant adverse environmental impacts. But they do have those two procedural paths. One is the EIS process, and the other is the EAF expanded Part 3 process.
Don, do you want to go ahead and join in?
Thank you. Yeah, one of the legal responsibilities of the EPB is to advise the village board on seeker issues. And the fact that the planning board won't be involved in that process, feel a lot of responsibility on the EPB. One of the questions I anticipate from the EPB, and I want to know the answer to, do you have a feel for the justification beyond the request for annexation? Is there a reason they want to move the property from the town to the village?
You'd have to talk to the applicant, but typically the reason for annexation of projects like this are twofold. One is to be able to be within the village boundaries where there is ready access to water and sewer municipal service, rather than having to rely upon, say, a package plant for sewer and wells for wells for water. And also that typically there are density requirements or allowances in villages that are greater than in towns, because towns usually deal with larger areas. And so there may not be the same type of opportunity for the type of density that needs to be done in order to financially have this project go forward. And so those are the two usual ways as to why projects want to be, or property wants to be annexed into a village for development.
Thank you.
So as everyone can see, this is a very large project. It is a complex process that will occur. It is something that we will have influence in. However, the primary responsibility of the seeker is not going to be our responsibility. So I think it probably is a good idea if we are able to think about this, look at it. It's not something that's going to occur overnight. This is not something that by our next meeting will be done, packaged, and ready to hand off. So I would suggest that everyone study this a bit. If you get the opportunity to drive by or to walk in that area, and I don't know if we've been given permission to do that yet because it has not appeared before us and has not become our responsibility to get an idea. But if you have lived here more than a few months, I think you know exactly where that property is and what a large area it encompasses.
And the site plan that you've been sent by Alana gives a good picture of that, as well as the specific layout.
So do we have any more questions just initially here? I know there's been a lot that's been presented here, so we have quite a bit of information that we need to think about, discern, and to study. But are there any other questions that we have here initially? I'm sorry, Don, can't hear you. You're muted.
Is there an estimation of when the secret process will begin?
That's going to be up to the village board of trustees as lead agency, probably weighing in with the town board as to whether or not they want the secret process prior to the joint public hearing, or they want the joint public hearing first before delving into the secret process. The secret process must be done before each of the boards vote.
Will, do you have any sense of that? No, Will's already, is Will here? Yeah, Will's there on his iPhone.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
We just had this meeting last week, so yeah, it's very early days.
So there we go. Some exciting news. Lots of work to do that's going to occur over the next few months. So please take a deep dive into this as much as you can. You do have some information, become educated on it, take a walk through the area. It would be advisable to me anyway that you prepare a list of questions and concerns that you might have so that we can figure out how we want to address those, whether individually or as a board, which we can probably discuss at our next board meeting. Zach, you have a question?
No, that all sounds good to me.
I thought I saw you taking a dive towards the microphone there.
No.
Okay. All right. So with that information, let's go ahead and move to our next part, which is I need a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Second?
I second.
Okay. So with that in mind, our meeting for this evening is adjourned. Thank you all very much for attending and for paying attention and for asking intelligent questions. And I look forward to us continuing this discussion. So everyone have a good night.
Thank
Thanks.